Yeah. All right. Good evening, everybody. We'll go ahead and get started this evening. Appreciate y'all for coming. This is part 4 of our new Landowners educational series. This evening, we've got a guest speaker going to kick us off this evening, Mr. Justin Hale. He's one of the directors of operations and co-owners of Ignition Land Services. Justin here was a former county agent, worked with us in Johnson County. Up until recently, he decided to venture out on his own. He was always pretty good at weed identification, weed knowledge, as far as how to ID them and how to get rid of them. So when we brought this topic up, I decided to reach out to Justin and see if he'd come join us this evening. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Hale. Go ahead, sir.
It ain't gonna click yet. Gotta reopen it back.
I'm sorry.
You're fine.
That right there. You don't work now?
Sure.
There you go.
Okay,
Good,
cool.
sir.
All right. Good evening, everybody. How long do I need to talk to that thing? Is
You're
that
good.
good?
You're good. As long as you're right now, you're good.
Cool deal. Well, I won't venture to the other side of the room then. I usually talk a lot when I walk or walk when I talk, whatever it is. So that's what they tried to teach us how to do in school, was walk and talk and talk and walk, and now you can't shut me up. So good evening. My name's Justin Hale. Like Jared said, I used to be a county extension agent. Almost made it to 10 years. Started a business. A lot of people in my area didn't have somebody to take care of these small 5, 10, 15, 20 acre places. You know, everybody got big booms on their sprayers. And so I saw a need for that. Or really, my business partner, Chris, he's sitting back here in the back. He said, you know, why don't we start a business doing that? And I said, sure, why not? Let's start taking care of these folks and see if this is something worth doing. They kept growing and growing. We still do some small acreage stuff like that, but we ventured in. I do vegetation management for big industrial companies and solar farms. I mean, anywhere I can make a dollar. You know how it is when you're on your own, running your own business. If somebody asks you if you do it, you say yes. So
then go find out how to.
yeah, and then you go find out how to do it. Hey, we've been in those situations a few times that we figured out we bit onto the wrong elephant. So the first thing I like to talk about is, as my presentation is titled, it's kind of an outline. We're going to tune it, ID it, and kill it. If I'm giving you chemicals to spray or advice on what you guys should be spraying at y'all's place, you go over to Tractor Supply, Northern Tool, go over to Roselle and Tyler, or I don't care if you even go down here to Wiley and get you a sprayer. First, you need to make sure that it's calibrated right. Or if you pick up one off of Facebook, you don't know how somebody or even if the manufacturer might have accidentally had this thing calibrated wrong. And if I'm giving you a recommendation for a certain amount of product to go out on a piece of property, if you don't have it done right, you can start to over apply stuff. And some of these recommendations I'll tell you about today, if you hit too much of it, say I'm telling you to put out an ounce of MSM and you start putting out 2 or 3 ounces, it might have been safe for certain types of grasses. Then we start venturing into that area of no, it's not. We're going to start sterilizing the soil. Putting too much down can actually start causing non-target species damage. And then, of course, if you're putting out more product, that means you're going to have to put more product back in that tank to finish the job. So it's going to start costing you more. So this example right here is the last time I bought it, which has been a few months, is for Duracore. These are real world prices if you went out and bought it yourself. And I'm always going to recommend you put Duracore out at 20 ounces an acre because you get one shot with the active ingredient in that. So you might as well hit it with a full whammy. So it costs you 76 cents per ounce. If you're putting out at a 10-gallon total volume for your sprayer, that should be about $15.20 per acre just for the chemical when you're putting that out at that rate. So say your sprayer was just a little bit off and you're putting out 15 gallons per acre. You've now upped your cost to almost $22 an acre. And I mean, when you're talking about what you're trying to get done, what you're trying to get accomplished, those dollars really start to add up. So you can literally watch money come right out the boom. So under application. So in my time as a county extension agent, I've come across some folks that tell me this product didn't work, and then when they tell me whatever it may be, and I sit here and scratch my head, and I look at what's out in their field, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on here. Either you've made some resistance, which is not good, or you're not putting enough product out. So it's not going to be effective. You can start building up resistance in these plants by not putting out enough application. And then also why you need to calibrate is an opportunity to get real hands-on and freshen up your components with your sprayer. So why do we always do this? This is an untreated field, or this is a field that, well, I got a buddy of mine that we spray his place, and this is the section of it that I asked him if we could do something like this, and we just ran a strip. This was done with my sprayer. And what we have is just what was done with is something you can buy. It's not some fancy state-of-the-art piece of equipment, regular old T-jet nozzles. And this goes to show you that you can literally write your name in a field. So I'm going to go through this pretty quick because I want to focus on the weeds with you guys, but I want to make sure everybody's stuff is always calibrated. Tools you're going to need, at least a 200-foot tape or wheel. Probably needs to be a little bit more than that because you got to measure it about 206 feet. But stopwatch or your phone, measuring cup that goes to at least 32 ounces. I recommend 64 because if your stuff's miscalibrated, it's going to overflow. So flags or cones, and then always PPE for the guy that's going to be working with the machine. We're going to be calibrating through space and time today. You need to always think about how who might have had that sprayer before you. Somebody might have had it as a demo unit down at Wiley, or they could have had it as a demo unit there at Tractor Supply, or maybe it looked like it was an open box item. Somebody bought it from Northern Tool, went home and put some stuff in it, and now you bought it as an open box item. You don't know what was in there, so thoroughly clean it out, but make sure that you got PPE on just in case somebody put something in there that's going to make you itch. Nozzle spacing. So most of your sprayers, if you buy them from a store or something like that, they typically come around a 20-inch nozzle spacing. Why is this important? That's going to give you how many feet that we need to measure that we're going to need to drive to get our time. So time, take your distance based off your nozzle spacing, place a start and stop point. Drive this 3 times, starting and stopping the stopwatch at the same spot on the equipment that you started. So if you say you're standing there and you're doing this by yourself, or you're riding in the cab of the tractor, you got it in 3rd gear at 1200 RPM, you got the PTO, if it's a PTO driven pump, or you got all your pressure set like you're supposed to. You need to make sure that if you're clicking the start on the stopwatch, if you're clicking the stopwatch, daggone, we're getting tongue-tied tonight. And say when the boom crosses it, make sure at the stopping point, when you pass through it, you're clicking stop on the stopwatch. You're clicking stop on the stopwatch at the same time. Oh yeah, there it is. We could have just read it. It'd been a lot easier, huh? So this makes for a great date night activity. Anytime we calibrate our equipment, if it's up at my shop, it's usually my business partner. I wouldn't call it a date night, even though, yeah, we do get up there and start, having some of those shop adult beverages, and it turns into a good time. So it makes for a good activity to do with somebody else. Hold you accountable for being accurate. So you take that time that we collected traveling those points. This is where you're going to take your measuring cup and go down on each one of your nozzles. This is a good opportunity to clean them out if it's from the previous season, or if you're putting your equipment up, put it up calibrated so you ain't got to worry about when you get started in the spring to make sure it's all right. Click the nozzle output. The amount of ounces that you have is going to translate to how many gallons per acre you are putting out. So, like I said, this is a good opportunity to look at those hoses, valve bodies, the check valves and things like that to make sure it's all kind of clean and up and operational. Backpack sprayers, I won't go into too much detail about this. A lot of times you use them for spot spraying, but if you do have a yard or something like this, if y'all got a handout, or Jared's got a copy of my slides, or you can Google how to calibrate your backpack sprayer. But all of these methods that we talked about today are based off of 1/128th of an acre. And so that's 340 square feet. You measure it off, walk it, do the same thing, squirt the stuff into the jar, and that tells you how much you're putting out in an acre. So now we're getting on to the chemicals. Trying to watch my time too, because I get long-winded. When you're mixing chemicals, why do you do this? Some people might try to get super scientific on you and say, oh, it's so that there's enough water so that, you know, if you're using a wettable powder, it dilutes properly. Poo-poo on that. What it really is here for is, yes, you've got some water to start with so that stuff blends and it isn't chemicals instantly mixing with each other, surfactants instantly mixing with each other. So if it's reactive, there's at least a buffering agent of some water here to kind of delete that. That's cool. But why some people get too focused on it being a third to a half, let's just make sure we got some water in the tank. So some agitation starting, things like that. The rest of this, yes, we want to start with herbicide. It doesn't matter how much it is. You just want to make sure you've got enough room left in the tank to get all the other products that you've got to get in there done. So if that means you've got a 500-gallon tank and you're filling that bad boy all the way up to 400 gallons, that's fine. That's over half, right? But we've got room to put chemical in it. Add your surfactants, dyes, and spray indicators, and then you fill the rest up with water. So that's what some folks ask about the proper mixing way. This is the proper order. Where do we drop the ball when it comes to weed identification, weed killing, taking care of our pastures and stuff? Well, first off, misidentification of the weed. You can call your county extension agent, you can call me, you can call a herbicide guy, and you try to describe this weed. And unless you're saying it's got spiky leaves and it looks like it's got a stalk that's made of celery on it with a purple fuzzy flower at the top, there's a lot of weeds out there you start describing, and I'm not going to be able to guess that it's a thistle. So that's what I just described as a thistle. So if you tell me what you think it is, and I can't see a picture of it or get it identified properly, there's a lot of things out there that if I make a recommendation, there's stuff out there, it ain't gonna kill it. Unless you're doing something like Roundup or, Remoxone, like where we're doing something with a total vegetation control. Spraying at the wrong growth stage. Pastora will absolutely kill Johnson grass, but you have to spray it at the right height, at the right time, and the right conditions for it to work. There is also people that can put out Roundup on not Bahia grass, on your Bermuda grass early season, and it's not going to kill your Bermuda grass, and you can clean up weeds quite well. But if you miss that, you're going to set your hay cutting back, you're going to have damages and stuff. So that's why we're always looking at the growth stage. We shut off our sprayers when it got too hot this summer because of the environmental conditions, and people were still wanting us to come out and spray when we had sunflowers headed out. And I'm like, man, I'm taking your money, but you're the one that wants me to spray. So spraying at the wrong growth stage. If it's already gone to seed, let's just go ahead and shred it, because I guarantee you diesel's a lot cheaper than chemical. Running the tractor, if you get what I'm saying. Bad environmental conditions. Kind of like what I was saying earlier, when we start getting into droughty conditions, where we getting way too hot outside, when you're down on the deathbed and someone's trying to get you to take some medicine, I know some of that stuff out there, they're actually trying to kill us, but, when you don't feel good, you're not real receptive to even eating, right? Same thing goes with plants. When it's too hot outside, it's really, really, really hard for these plants to take in the poison, to take in the chemical, or even, for example, if you're doing like a foliar feed fertilizer. Those plants aren't going to be taking anything in. Those stomatic cells that are on the leaf are shut tight, doing what? Conserving water. They don't want to off-gas any moisture. So bad environmental conditions, wrong product. It's great. I've sprayed pastures and we've done some pipeline jobs and stuff, and we've had pipeline companies come back and say, hey, I thought we paid y'all to spray weeds. I'm like, yeah, we sprayed what you said, but you got nutsedge over here, and there's only a couple of things that take care of that. So it's easy to get the wrong product put out on the stuff. You need to calibrate your sprayer. So there's been times, like I said earlier, I went out to people's places and you're like, man, I really don't know how this stuff is still alive, and the guy tells me that he put a gallon of this in a 200-gallon sprayer, and he spread it over 40 acres, and I'm doing the math, I'm like, huh. Well, I told you to put out 20 ounces, you're really only putting out about 4, so no wonder nothing said, so. And you didn't read the product label. Yes, ma'am, in the back.
It does kill that sedge.
Outrider, it depends on how big of an area. If it's in a yard, there's a couple of different things, but Crider or Outrider are good recommendations. In a pasture, yes, ma'am.
What about in a garden spot?
If you're in a garden area, sedge hammer, but I would be very careful about where you're spraying that, and I would try to spot spray as much as you can. Or just use a tarp to cover it up and smother it out.
Tried that, well, they tried black plastic.
Yeah, and it came through it. That's pretty tough. It's tough. I would root plow the thing all the way up and then just try to solarize the soil with like a black tarp or something. But if you put out things like sedge hammer and stuff like that, it can affect your tuberous plants. So if you're planting potatoes, onions, garlic, things like that sulfurone methyl will have an effect on them. That's what's in sedge hammer. To answer your question for the most part? Yeah.
You said Crider, sedge hammer, and one other thing?
Outrider. But Crider and Outrider are for pasture use only. For the label. I will say as legal as I can tonight, so. See me afterwards for off-label recommendations, no, I'm kidding. So, oh man, this is one of the slides I redid. Okay, what this is supposed to say up here is a quick rant on surfactants. So, it's cool. We picked the right herbicide, right? Your surfactant that you are putting in your tank to go with your herbicide is just as important as the herbicide that you're doing. Why is that? Well, it depends on what you're targeting and what your goal is. So if you're just going and getting a 90-10 or an 80-20 surfactant from Tractor Supply, please, for the love of God, throw your Dawn dish soap bottle away. Because you are spending a lot of money. I would love to come drive your Rolls Royce after this. For what you spend on a bottle of Dawn dish soap, you've got to put, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 tablespoons of that stuff to actually get to what we're trying to get here. And if that's just per gallon, okay, you could go buy a $19 jug of 80-20 surfactant and it's calling for 1 ounce per 20 gallons. It's going to stretch you a long, long way, right? So what are our goals here? So if we're trying to do spreading agents, sticking agents and stuff like that, we're trying to get this surface tension broken down. Something without a surfactant, there's your water droplet with all your neat little chemicals sitting there on that leaf, right? We've got a little bit, here's your Dawn dish soap. This is what your Dawn dish soap's doing right here. Because you're not able to pour enough Dawn dish soap in there without it to turn into a sudsy-dudsy mess before we get to what we're really trying to do here. The more we can spread that drop out over the most cells, the more likely it's easier to get more of that product into that leaf. So if you've mixed up something really hot that we're going to talk about later, and you spray it without anything or just a little bit of Dawn dish soap, it's trying to drive this jackhammer through this one little spot on the leaf, and you'll burn a hole through it. And so it's going to reduce your herbicide uptake, or in a positive way, it's going to reduce your fertilizer uptake, whatever you're trying to do. There's stabilizing agents. If you got hard water, you need to have something in there to kind of help balance out that pH. If you've ever, there's sometimes you may think, oh man, my cousin talks about how well Roundup works for him, killing weeds along his driveway or in his cracks or stuff. But I buy the same thing he does and I mix it up and it takes weeks for that stuff to die. Sometimes it's because your water has a different pH than they do, or maybe you're on a well system or something like that. The content of that water affects the herbicide. You want to know something? You don't know how many chemistry classes I've taken? 0. Do you know how many I wish I had taken? A lot. so I can understand this stuff better. But everything plays along. That's my rain on surfactants. Figure out what you're putting in the tank. So what tools do we have without a license? Who has a pesticide license in here? We got one. Anybody else? Private, commercial, non-commercial? We just got one. Maybe some people do online, but my goal when Jared called me, he was like, I want you to put together some stuff for people that don't have a license. So why do we need a license? There are certain products that are regulated and restricted in the state of Texas for use because of their volatility and for their ease of killing non-target species. There's things out there like Tordon that have picloram in them, that if they're sprayed wrong or they drip wrong, you will absolutely smoke your neighbor's peach trees. Or if you're next to a cotton field, you will absolutely decimate it. So certain things need to have a license so that whoever's using them, you can come back and say, oh, this plumber installed my hot water heater wrong and that's why I blew my house up. You see where my brain went there? Same thing goes with herbicides. It goes that way because they need to have somebody's name and professionalism tied to that mess up. That's why we got to have licenses for certain chemicals, because we got to make sure the people that are using them know the risks that are associated with using them. Do they work great? Absolutely. Are they cheaper? Absolutely not. They're all about the same price except for a few. Here's the ones without a license. These are all the active ingredients that you can use in a range or pasture setting that will absolutely do an amazing job for you. And it's crazy how many of these combine to make products that you have probably already knew. Like aminopyrrolid right here is in milestone, but if you combine aminopyrrolid with niclosulfuron, or no, it's a chlorosulfuron right here. This one and this one combined makes chaparral. Anybody heard of chaparral? So that's why that product doesn't need a license. We're just using multiple modes of action to get to that point. So here's all, these aren't the only trade names they go by. Okay, these are just the popular ones. So, and I ain't paying no patronage to BASF or Corteva or nobody. But what I'm saying is how you can associate which ones go to what. And y'all know some of these. Remedy Ultra, everybody knows you can get that at Tractor Supply, right? Triclopyr, it's a great product. It's something easy to throw in a tank. If you got some tough to control weeds, why not? Let's throw some Triclopyr in the tank. So, common winter weeds. These are the ones that we kind of see coming up. A lot of people don't worry about winter weeds in Texas. Why? Well, what are we usually producing here? We're trying to produce coastal, Bahia grass, buffalo grass. Those are all warm season stuff, right? This is all for aesthetics. These are the ones that people see in their pasture and they call up to the extension office or they call me and Chris to come and treat. So these are your thistles, right? Yep, thistles in the rosette stage. You got your ground sorrels, curly docks and things like that. They come up and those are the ones that people see. Bastard cabbage, that's another one. They're really easy to kill. Super easy. And people are out here scratching their head like, no, they're not. You can help. I'm going to help you out with the right chemistry to get it done today. So thistles. When you see this purple head up here, and you start reading the label on a jug, and it's telling you that if you're going to be using, let's just stick with Duracor. If you're going to be using something like Duracor with aminopyrrolid, that's one of the active ingredients in it. It says that you need to put it out at a minimum of 12 ounces per acre or a maximum of 20 to kill a thistle. What rate, when you are at this stage, do you think you need to put it out at? 20. Even if it's at this small spot right here, this rosette stage, let me tell you something about aminopyrrolid. The maximum amount of that product that you can put out in a year is 22 ounces. So no matter how way you cut it, you can't put it out at the minimum and get to do it again. And you can't put it out at the maximum and do it again. So you get one shot with it. Put it out at 20. I don't care if it's little bitty, like this over here, like this milk thistle that's just now sitting a bolt up, or if it's all the way up like this false purple or this bull thistle or a Russian thistle that's got its head. If you're using any product with aminopyrrolid in it, like I got over here, Duracore, you need to put it out at its max rate. Aminopyrrolid needs to always be put out at its max rate because you get one shot with it. It's also one of those products that if you come back and you were to try to do 12 or 16 or 18 ounces a second time, you might start killing stuff that you don't want to. And might start causing your soil to get a little sterile. So other guys that I got on here, right? We're going to be treating these things November through February. That's my first warning to you is we should be treating them then. The worst thing that you can do as a landowner is go, oh, I don't need to spray. I don't see nothing. They're out there. Oh, they're there. I got customers that we've had for 4 and 5 years that tell me, oh, we're just going to skip this year. Then they're calling me in May going, I need you. So what's great is all these chemistries right here do an amazing job on thistles. You can run triclopyr with aminopyrrolid. So you can run Remedy and Duracore together, triclopyr, Remedy. It's super affordable. You can run that at a low rate in there. A Mazepik Plateau, it gets kind of expensive, but it's a low use rate. Anytime you see some of them expensive products like Pastora costing $400 a bottle for like a 20-ounce bottle, it's getting put out at about 3 ounces an acre. So think about that. Yes, sir.
Does it matter whether these thistles and weeds are coming up through the grass and dirt, or they're coming up like they're cracks in cement?
For like what we're using? Yeah, so if it's an area that if it's like cracks in cement or something like that, like if it's
Driveway.
say a driveway or something, I would just reach for Roundup. Like, and I wouldn't be reaching for nothing super expensive. There's another like total vegetation control product like that RM43. That's got not only does that have Roundup in it, but it also has a Mazepir in it, which is going to have a little.
What did you say it was?
RM43, I think that's what it is. RM43, it's in a red jug.
Yeah,
Farm Works.
that's what we used.
Yep. So that's gonna have a couple of different things in it. So if it's in an area that you don't care about other vegetation, or anything like that, go ahead, buy the cheap stuff. Be smart when you're mixing it up. There are, claims out there that certain stuff makes you sick. Just be smart. We gotta be smart. Like, don't let the government worry about taking care of you or worrying about some jury trying to get you some money for something. Let's put the gloves on. Let's play with some Roundup and kill this stuff cheaply. Otherwise, we're going to be grabbing these more expensive products and get the same results. But look at this. Why are we doing it during November and February? Because we want it to be in this stage. This thing is hungry. It's taking in every single thing it can right now. Water, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, and poison. Oh, it would love to have a joyous dose of poison right now because it's sending everything down to the roots for storage to be able to send up those seeds. Ground sorrel, treat in the early spring, March. You can get away with doing it a little bit earlier if you're using something like the aminopyrrolid or the metsulfuron methyl. Or combining those together using products like chaparral and things like that. Plotter, you can use Plotter, that's a generic version. Or I don't say generic, I say post-patent products. Post-patent products. I don't like to call them generics because they are literally the same exact thing. It's just whose sticker slapped on them, right? And who sells them for the most affordable amount. We won't get into those politics. Annual ryegrass. Annual ryegrass. This is one that depends on where I'm giving this talk around the state. Some people snarl at me, or some people go, how do I get rid of it? So for everybody, no matter where you're from, here we go. Cut and bale or graze it off. Pre-emergence when warranted. So why are we trying to take this out, huh? So if you have got a small acreage place or even a large acreage place and you are using it for grazing, I don't want you to even pay attention to this slide. This whole thing is for somebody that is trying to maybe hay off of a small set of acreage, or, and because I know this is a small landowner thing, right? Or if you've got a large hay pasture, you know somebody that's got a large hay pasture, this is what these chemicals need to be used for. If you're putting money into a grazing pasture to get rid of ryegrass, you're taking money out of your pocket twice, because not only are you using money to spray it, but you're also going to have to feed your animals. This is a palatable forage. As long as you can keep them out there eating on this stuff, they're going to eat it. But just in case you're wondering, you can come in early before the green up on Bermuda grass, spray it with Roundup and kill it off, shred it off, or use a heavy graze. If we got it in a hay pasture, let's put us down some pre-emergent stuff, something like Resilon or Pral H2O, something that's going to get it all the way out. You do that so that we get better hay production. Ryegrass does slow down your hay production. Honorable mentions, bitter sneezeweed, buttercup, henbit, dandelion, all of these little bitty, I call them goober plants. They're kind of just out here hanging out. Henbit, I think you could sneeze on it and it would die. I mean, it literally is just, it's born, it's in the mint family. I believe this plant right here is just, everybody, I've had people call the office before and say, what is that cute little purple flower my neighbor's got growing? I'm like, you don't want it. Or maybe you do. But so this stuff right here is super easy to get rid of. Dandelions, super easy to get rid of. And so I kind of lump them all together and tell you that any of those products, Duracore, Cimarron, MSM, even Remedy will clean that stuff up for you. I don't know how I deleted the picture, but I had a sedge right here. And how you know if you have sedges, if you walk up to a nut sedge grass and pick it up and start playing with the leaf in your hand, you'll notice it feels like there's a triangle in between your fingers. There's two edges on like your index finger and one edge on your thumb. And that's because sedges have edges. That's the way I remember it. And there's a product for pastures. You can call it Outrider. And then a post-patent version of that product that is called Kreider. It just came on the market about a year ago. Outrider will run you about $400 a bottle. Kreider is $3. You do all the invoicing. Cheaper. Yeah, it is. It's significantly cheaper. So, but it's the same exact stuff. We ran them side by side on a pipeline. We've used what was left of an Outrider bottle, and then we load it up and put some Kreider in the tank and go from there. And they're the same. We get the same exact results. You know why? Because it's not generic. It's post-patent.
Okay, but
Yeah.
it is you use the same percentage.
Yes, in fact, if you go on Kreider's website, it says same active ingredient as Outrider, and then you go down to the label, and it's almost like they copy pasted.
And if it's not broke, don't fix it.
If it's not broke, don't fix it. So yeah, it's 1.88 ounces per acre is the rate on that. So if you're that $400 and something bottle of Outrider that we were talking about, that's a 20-ounce bottle. So that'll treat about 10 acres or so, 11-ish. I guess if math comes out that way. If you ever lose any of these dry, here's a tip for you. If you ever lose the little measuring cup that comes within these dry things, don't panic. You can't get one from the feed store that you bought it from or your herbicide rep or whatever. Go get you a food scale from Kroger, HEB, zero it out with a container, and you can weigh out that stuff. It's measured out by the ounces that way. It's not measured out by this specially designed cone. But yes, I did have somebody ask me that. I just spring poured it. Those products like Outrider and Kreider or Cimarron, those sulfuron chemicals, those are the ones that if you accidentally let your hand get a little too heavy, you start killing things that you had no idea that you wanted to kill, like the Bermuda grass. It will kill it, and it will sterilize your soil. Where we at on time? Good God, Jared, we got to pick up space. Curveball, Dewberry. So dewberry, this stuff starts showing up. Everybody's out in the crowd pointing their fingers. Hey, we got that. Yeah, you do. So it's not a winter weed, but I'm trying to program your brain to think about it. We need to start thinking about treating that stuff here in the next 3 to 6 weeks. I don't know. Mother Nature's been playing fun games lately, hasn't she? I mean, today's nice. I like it. But between, it needs to be addressed between blooming in the late spring and into the fall prior to the fall frost. The closer we can get to that, probably like October 5th, October 10th date, maybe even October 8th, the closer we can push it to that first frost, better to treat this stuff. Yes, I do know I said you can treat it on here late spring, but that window is so brief from when it sets that berry to when it gets too hot to spray this stuff. I don't want you to worry about the late spring unless you just are retired and that's all you got to do is to sit and watch the dewberry grow. Then more power to you. Let's treat it in the spring. So products to consider are going to be like MSM, Triclopyr. I'd really love to see those two together. I would love to see that be a marriage to get rid of dewberry. And then chaparral, it's great. That's one that I probably wouldn't spray in the late spring. I would probably try to do chaparral closer to that first frost date. And then Pasture Guard HL, which is probably going to be right there with chaparral. I'd probably like to see it sprayed more closer to that later early fall date. Common warm season weeds. Probably this is why you want to be here. So this guy right here, Sandburr, Mare's Tail, this is the one that everybody says, oh, I don't need you to come spray, or we don't need to spray, or I don't need to get any chemical, and then all of a sudden it's out there having a party, hanging out. Because it comes up quick. This thing bolts in about 6 to 10 days. So it goes from its little fuzzball head that's on the ground to 3.5 foot, because I think it grows 1.5 to 3 inches a day. When it gets ready to bolt. So it spends all that time as a little poof ball on the ground and then it just.
Texas
Does it have
Yeah.
a flower?
It does not. It has what they call a fluorescence, I guess, yes, it does have a flower, but it's not a characterable, it's not like a purple one, like would you see on a thistle or, it's not pretty. It's flowers up here at the top. It's really itty bitty.
I have something that looks like that, but it has a purple flower to it.
Not be a type of thistle. See, we're starting to describe stuff. Show me a picture and you won't catch me lying. So, Croton head over here, of course, silverleaf nightshade, we get real intimidated by that, horse nettles and stuff like that. Crabgrass. Ooh, jeez. All right, cool. So, it's too late by the time we start worrying about it. We start kicking them little seed heads off and everything. It's too late to treat it. I mean, there are some products you can use, but I'm sure some of y'all know how much Pastora can be. And I also know that Resolon's a more expensive product. It's because this is a very unique thing, and it's in the grass family. So when we start talking about trying to treat grasses, it gets expensive. Because just like a hitman, it's really hard to take out somebody and only take out that person, right? If we're just trying to get one thing out and not kill the Bermuda grass, or one thing out and not kill the Bahia grass, or whatever it is, there was a lot of research that went in to figuring out what makes that grass tick. So these are going to be your options. I feel like my arm's twisted that I have to put Prowl H2O up here. Unless you have a way of watering that in, or you're some type of rain god and you can figure out exactly where it's going to rain, when it's going to rain, Prowl H2O sometimes can be just a waste of money. So, but once again, like I talked about Pastora, as long as it's less than 2 inches in height, it's going to suppress the seed head on this thing. It's also going to have the opportunity to do a little bit of control. So it'll be something you have to treat year after year. Pre-emergent, probably going to take a couple of years to get this out. This is a great forage. It provides a nutritious forage. So if it's something you can benefit from and you can tolerate how ugly it gets, let your animals graze on it. So that's another one that people try to shoot me on. And I'm like, hey, look, man, some people call and say they want to get rid of it. So mud grass. I operated our business out of my house and the small acreage that I live on. And this is, Chris, is my whole place, not smut grass. Yeah, it's ugly. I hate this stuff, man.
Can you
'Cause now
burn it
it's-
out?
Huh?
Is it good best to burn that out? or-
Yeah, you can burn it out, or you can use Velpar, or you can just get cussed at by your wife to go mow like all the time, and I just let her nag on me for a little bit, because I'm like, as soon as I mowed it, like I did 2 days ago, we just got it rain, we're gonna get another seed head up, you know. Dig it up, you can use, I don't have it on here, because it needs to be treated at a certain time, but you can use panoramic. You want to write that down on it, but it's got to be treated when it's less than 3 inches and 4 inches in height. But other than that, Velpar, it's kind of pricey, and you have got to be extremely cautious around trees. When I say extremely cautious, it's not like Graze on P plus D or Graze on Next, where it's like, ha ha ha, don't spray underneath the oak trees. No, it's like, do not. Like, unless you don't care about that oak tree anymore, don't do it. This stuff was developed for the forestry industry, and it just so happens to work on a lot of really hard to kill grasses and weeds. But the negative is it will tear a tree up. Cool.
What was the other, you said-
Panoramic.
Panoramic.
Panoramic, the one I don't have listed on here. That one, I want you to read the label. The ones that I mentioned that aren't on here, it's because I want you to read the label. If you're actually trying to go do this, I want you to read the label on it. Just because there's like little asterisks and stuff that says you need to do this. You need to add a water conditioner to it because the pH will mess up in a panoramic really fast. Mare's tail, we're back to it. So, metsulfuron-methyl, you notice that I have that on a lot of stuff. MSM is a really, 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 really affordable herbicide, just like Remedy. If you can put those two together, or if you got something like aminoperylate with Durapur, just throw some MSM in the tank. I know that sounds irresponsible, but what you're really doing is you're providing multiple modes of action so that you're hitting them with a 1-2 punch. And we're going to have a less likely chance of building up resistance. There is a slide I took completely off of here for marsh elder. I told Jared about this. We're starting to see marsh elder with a lot of resistance to herbicides. So if you've got marsh elder on your property and you want to know how to treat it, give me a shout and I can tell you what your other options are. But I've taken that off. Back to mare's tail. Chaparral does a good job on this. It's a good way of cleaning up. But once again, that's almost like combining Durapur and MSM together. Sandburr, grass burrs, cool. This is one that you don't need to cut corners on. If you are trying to tackle sandburrs and you start reading the label, it starts talking about, say with Resilon, that you need to do split applications and you just cannot stomach spending that $300 to $400 a quart and putting this stuff out at 3 ounces an acre twice a year, then just don't even start. Because this is a marriage. When it comes time to get rid of sandburrs, you have got to grab this bride by the hand, run her to the altar, get her prayed, blessed on, and make sure that the father-in-law is not carrying a gun. Because if you try to back out of this thing, it gets nasty. And I'm talking about for your pocketbook, because your field's already got this stuff all in it, or your yard, or whatever it may be. But if you don't stop, all the money that you spent before that, you might as well give them to me, and we have put it on black, or 32, or 00, or something on the daggum roulette wheel, and we could have probably had a lot more fun trying to double your money. So, Pastora, can't use that on Bahia grass. And it has to be done early in the season. You have people that say that Pastora works wonders on sandburrs. It's because they got out there early. What's early? When these little guys are about that tall. So if you need to know what that looks like, about like that.
Okay.
Anything bigger than that, we've got what, 1, 2, 3 flag leaves going up. Anything bigger than that, we're starting to cross into the territory of Pastora not working. 649, we're still cooking. So, trial H2O, if you got a small enough area or you can time it just right, this is a lot more portable option. But like I said, if you can't hit it when it's raining, it's fine. Trial's fine in the spring. It's perfectly fine when we're needing to treat this around January. No late after Valentine's Day, this marriage is done. We're not going to be messing with this anymore. We might as well try again next year. But what you cannot mess up on this is that second application. That's going to come around June-ish. Just you got to watch the temperatures. When we start kind of hitting that next run, we're starting to kind of plateau further up. There will be a second flush of sandbirds that come about. And this is what that second application is for. And that's where Prowl, if you were listening to me, this is where this one's not going to be good. That second application, Prowl does not need to be in the conversation, because what does it not do around that time of year? Rain. So Prowl's out of the picture. Resilon and Dazaplam is who you're going to be using for that. Or if you do a cutting or something like that, or mow down that pasture or something around that time, Pastora is what you're going to be wanting to get. Why am I talking like that? Why am I saying we need to mow? Or why are we trying to talk about hay cutting? With Pastora or Resilon, okay, we're trying to get this stuff as close to, for Pastora, as close down on these little guys as we can. And if we got Bahia grass and we got all other kinds of stuff, if you're in my house, smut grass, all that junk growing, it's covering up these little guys down below and you can't get to them. So that's why it's got to have an open canopy. That's what we're going for here. So Pastora for sure needs to mow because we're trying to get to the vegetation. Resilon, why do we want to catch it after that cutting and stuff like that? Resilon's trying to get to the ground. We need it to get down to the soil to build that pre-emergent blanket to catch that second flushing. Awesome.
Where that sits on the ground in that picture and there, is that kind of purple?
Maybe. It can be, yes. I mean, there's different ecotypes of sandburs, grass burrs. You trying to figure out if you got crabgrass instead? Talus grass?
Well, I'm trying to identify which is the sandbur and which is crabgrass.
This is sandbur, this is sandbur. They both are, but you're trying to identify at your place which is which. So this is where it gets fun because it's really hard to differentiate the two. So when they're that little, what you need to get online, if you can get on Google and look up what the little legioles look like, that's the little clasp that's around. Your crabgrass is going to have little fuzzy guys right here. They're going to be little bitty hairs, it's called a hairy ligiole, and they're going to be right here around the collar, whereas your sandbur is going to be naked.
Really, you can see.
But if you've got this right here, you know you got a sandburs, and if you're treating for this, you're going to take care of the crabgrass in the process.
What I've done is sharpshooter and gloves and a trash bag.
How many acres you got?
Well, this is just
Oh,
the acre around the house.
yes, ma'am, I understand. So, and that's the other thing is affordability. That's where you got to start weighing the dollar. And I tell folks like they come at me and they're saying, "Oh, I want to be organic," and I'm like, "Well, me organic. Let's work together." At some point in time, you're going to get tired of plucking stuff. And then going back to the acre, like I could definitely maintain an acre with a sharpshooter, or even one of those weed man tools or something like that, or even they've got a sticker roller now that'll roll and you can collect the sticker heads off and stuff like that.
On the bottom of my foot.
Yeah, the bottom of your foot, or my calf when I slip and fall.
You know, for several years, I had Cocker Spaniels, and they collected them.
Oh, yeah, they did a great job.
And then we distributed them.
Yeah. Bull nettles, this is where you'll probably notice a lot of the same active ingredients are here, aren't you? You're like, wow, that's because these right here, you can't mess up when using them because they at minimum, I think the smallest one is probably gonna be Cimarron Plus, so chlorsulfron and sulfurfron methyl. It covers 135 different weeds in Texas. Chaparral's up to about 170-ish. Aminopyrrolid, or so like Duracore, there's another one in there, Rinscore. We won't get into that political crap, but Duracore will cover about 185 to 200 different weeds, and it has good residual. So usually somebody by now goes, "This is the same chemical on each side." And I'm like, yeah, I know, it's cool. This is so easy for you to go shop, and I can help you take care of stuff. I'm doing this for you, not for me to try to sell you anything or anything like that. But disclaimer, bull nettles look like this, then they look like this, then they look like that, right? This all, no matter what, when you're treating this, early season or late season, all these products need to be ran at the max rate on this particular plant. Why? It has a tap root that is really deep, and if you don't get all the way down and there is just enough carbohydrates that's in that tap root for it to have enough energy, because carbs are energy, right? Unless they convert to fat and junk, and then they get put around Justin's waist, and we try to get rid of them that way. But besides the fact, carbs down in that little root, if it just has just enough energy to ride on up, well, there you go. You're going to get a bull nettle no matter what. Yes, sir.
So when you're spraying this, do you want to aim for the root and for the soil itself? Or do you want to try and get everything kind of coated? Or what's the best application for it? Because don't these have like a waxy coating on them?
Yes. So in this situation, this is where I would want you to get a surfactant that has what they call a penetrating aid or a disposition aid. Yep. Sidekick, right? Is that what you said? Yep. Sidekick, Siltac, MBO Extra, Dynamic, is Helena's, Sidekick in that nutrients, I think. But anything that's got a penetrating agent in it, they can get past these hairs and that waxy cuticle. And that's the other reason why I want you to use the highest rate, because we've got to penetrate in, and where we can get in, it needs to be a good dose. We don't want to aim for the dirt around it, because most of these are going to be contact, and if they do have any soil residual activity, what you are doing initially to spray the leaf will give you plenty of soil contact in order to get that residual that you're looking for.
And these are all winter food.
We've moved into warm season weeds now. A few slides back, but they can second bloom. Where we live here in the Waco, Dallas, Fort Worth kind of greater area down to maybe Temple-ish. We live in a unique area where some of these weeds can overwinter and come back from root and stuff like that. So I do catch myself where people go, well, it kind of keeps on going. I'm like, I know. We have a light winter. On the sandburrs, if you find yourself we have a light winter, very mild, that's where you're going to have sandburrs that don't die off from a frost or a heavy freeze.
Gotcha.
And if you feel like you're getting defeated, you're like, man, one year we saw a 50% control. This year we didn't have it again. Maybe let's reflect on like what kind of a light winter we had, and don't feel defeated. Just know that we had some that overwintered into the spring. Silverleaf nightshade, timing on this one, you want to hit this probably around, if you're using any of these products with the aminopyrrolid in it, so Chaparral or Duracore, you can get away with treating this around the beginning of April. Anything else like the Cimarron Plus and stuff like that, you're gonna wanna wait and treat closer to the end of May for this year. That was the 1st of June. So, because the fields were too wet, right?
Right.
What I always like to say is if you feel like you missed the window by a little bit, go ahead and get the job done, because there's always gonna be those that didn't flush out right there at the beginning. Horse nettle kind of follows the last three, these three together. Man, I'm bouncing everywhere, I'm sorry. Silverleaf nightshade, horse nettle, it follows that same pattern. Let's try to stick with these chemistries. See why I switched down to Duracore and Chaparral. This one tends to bloom later. So it's okay if we push back that window into May for applying some of these products, if this is what our target is. Late April, early May is a good timing for putting this stuff down. This particular one has to have, if you don't have a license, aminoperlite in it, in order to be able to take care of it. Chaparral's got that longer residual. Ragweed. So this one, it blooms multiple times a year. It's constantly flushing. Unfortunately, if you don't have a license, you might have to treat twice. There's a couple of chemistries out there. If you have a license, you can put down a couple of picloram based products that will stretch your window, and you can take care of a lot of flushes of ragweed. But treating this early April, mid-April, and then coming back and treating at the beginning of June will usually take care of your ragweed situation for the year.
If you have a stand of where the, the
Big bloodweeds, yeah.
okay, is it better to go ahead and cut it down now?
Yep.
And then treat in the spring?
Yes, ma'am. Yep. If we have gotten to the point where it's taller than your grandkids, let's go ahead and shred that ragweed, put the mask on. This stuff right here will knock me harder down than the flu. Yeah. But of course, my brother-in-law, I don't even bother him, so I don't know what he's smoking, but it's definitely working for him. So, broom weeds, this is the other one that people don't realize they have. Yeah, Scotch broom, or they even got small head snakeweed. They're all they're in the Risticae family. Disclaimer on this: if you have this, and I'm gonna hurt your feelings, if you have this and you're running 10 head of cattle on 15 acres, let's destock a little bit, as in, unless your wife's going to kill you and get rid of all, if you got rid of all of them, let's try to get rid of as many as we can and let this ground rest. This is usually a good tall tale sign of overgrazing, because this plant is so little when it's a baby that even just basic grasses are going to crowd it out. So, but if you do find yourself in a situation of you destocked, then you want to come in, if you got rid of cattle or moved them to somewhere else or something, let this pasture rest for a year or two. But in that year or two, let's come in early season, like I'm saying, April, May time, and let's put down some methyl, Cimarron. This will be something that could throw some triclopyr, some remedy in the tank. Don't have that on here, but that remedy will do wonders on this in a pasture. Cocklebur, this is the other one. It's really, really hard to kill, and this is the best recommendations I can give you, adding in triclopyr to it. So remedy, any of these, putting remedy in the tank is going to help with these cockleburs. And it's just simply because these guys, they've got a big root, they've got a big stem, and a lot of times we forget to treat them because we don't see them until June, July time. But we should have been treating them around, May or something like that.
Do those have any grazing nutrition value?
Not that I know of. I don't think so. The stem's got a lot of hairs on them that usually taste pretty bitter. And then, of course, if you've got horses or things like that, they can get them caught in their mane and their tail. It ends up being a pain in the butt for you to get them out. So, woolly Croton, this is okay. All right, dove hunters. Any dove hunters out here? You know what this is like to doves? Everybody calls this dove weed. This is like, what's your least favorite thing to eat? Sardines, stale crackers? Trust Brussels sprouts. Trust me. Think of the thing that your mom or your wife or somebody, you were trying to impress someone and go out to a fancy restaurant and they're like, here, try this, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh, God, that's horrible. Can you live on it? Yes. Do you want to live on it? No. The dove do not care about this plant. I don't, even if you're a wildlife person, I'm going to tell you, I don't care what book you've been reading. Dove, because you know where this stuff is going to be right next to? A sunflower field or some millet or a lot of other things that the dove are going to enjoy a lot better. You know, like if this was Arby's sitting next, I'm trying to make something funny. I ain't even going to do it. I ain't even going to try tonight. But anyway, so same type of thing applied about the same time of year. And y'all keep hearing me hit that mark right there. We're not spraying early February. We're not spraying super late in the year. Once we get past June and July, it's too hot. A lot of these things have gone to seed. Keep the money in your pocket. And I know there's other ways to take care of this stuff, shredding and stuff, but I'm focusing on chemical tonight, and we're still taking up all my time. Johnson grass. Okay. I don't have anything else on this slide except for what works, right? Wine. You have to read the label on this one. Because too many people get confused as to whether or not, okay, yeah, I can use Pastora as long as it's pre-boot. What is pre-boot? It's my 6 inches, or I can use the Outrider as long as it's under 12 inches and hasn't put on a tassel yet. Poo-poo on that. Read the label, buy the product early. If you know you got Johnson grass, you got to treat it, pay attention to it. If it grows past its stage, right? If we get up here and we've already cleaned it out and everything, shred it. It'll come back and catch it when it's small. That's what we're trying to do. Because what it is this herbicide gets too rough coming down the stem, the straw that's sucking down to the root. It gets too rough and the plant shuts itself down before you get down to the root system, and it spreads by root. So that's the whole goal of why we're doing that. So we're at the end, yes.
Nutgrass, have you covered nutgrass at all?
Yes, in the very beginning, it was kind of like an add-on. So any of these right here will work for nutgrass.
Okay.
Outrider, Crider, Pastora, if it's in a yard, Sedgehammer or Image. Be careful with that one, because if it's in a yard, I'm pretty sure you can't use Image on St. Augustine.
Correct.
Yeah. So, I'm not here to fill your phone up with useless stuff. If you use a phone and like using a phone and like having some fun apps that can help you, picture this, iNaturalist, Google Lens. These are great things for you to use that I think all of them are still free. I think if you want to save stuff, you got to pay for a picture of this or whatever. But do not go buy herbicide based off what this thing says. I take the pictures of stuff that I know, I test it all the time, that I know what it is. And then I'm like, that's definitely not plain leaf sumac. Like that's a maple, like, what's going on here? So, but what this can do is you take a picture and it will get you in the ballpark of what needs to be done. Call your county extension agent. And then he can call me and I'll tell him what it is. Yeah, because they haven't got a weed specialist. So a lot of them still call me. Mapulator and Onyx Hunt. These are two apps that if you're calling somebody and you're wanting to send them maps to come spray your place, or you're trying to figure out, your great grandfather may have told you that you live on a 100-acre farm and that's all you've ever done, and it got passed down and willed down and everything. And then you actually map it out and you're like, shoot, this thing's actually 107 acres. Well, you know, with what land value is nowadays, I mean, come on, 7 acres, that's a lot of money. Not saying you're gonna sell out, but just knowing what you have. These two you can draw, you can take a screenshot, send a picture to somebody if you're trying to say, hey, I want you to do this. That's what Onyx looks like. It's got a whole bunch of tools. You can mark where gates are. You can put trails in there and everything. Share the map to somebody else. It's great. Tank mix calculator. I, even as a professional person that sprays, when Chris is out spraying for me, he's not very good with chemicals. He'll admit that. And he goes, what do I need to put in the tank? This is exactly what I use for myself and him or anybody that works for us to send. All you do is you put in how much, the size of your tank, the gallons, your chemical rate. It'll tell you how much product you need to buy. It'll tell you how much each batch is, and even if you got to do partial batches, so that you're not sitting here mixing up a 200-gallon tank on the 5th load and you only needed 25 gallons. But it'll tell you exactly how much to put in that 25 gallons to make it right. Spray Smart, the free app. Love Nutrient for this. It's great. It's about all it's useful for. You can't drag and drop if you don't have a professional account with them, but you can look at your current location. It's going to tell you it's sunny. It's going to tell you wind speed. It's going to tell you if there's an inversion present. You don't know what that is. That's just an exchange of air that happens really fast in the morning and in the evenings. And it'll suck chemical up off the ground and move it to your neighbor's cotton crop and kill it. And then somebody's going to be beating down your door. So that's kind of why I've got that at. Quick reference guide for common rangeland pasture herbicides. This is online. It's a quick guide, tells you all the active ingredients, rain fastness. Everybody know what rain fastness is in here? It's the time at which you spray the herbicide at which it needs not to dry, but before it rains, so that there's enough product in the plant to get the job done. So I love that question. Like right now, I've been spraying for armyworms, and I sprayed yesterday, and somebody asked if what I sprayed was good to go, and I was like, definitely not. We just blew that money. So yeah, it's great. Who thought it was gonna rain today? Not me. I didn't see it on the weather. My weather.
Didn't say it was, yeah, didn't say it was.
It didn't say it was on mine. So,
You need to realize that the meteorologist really isn't in control.
oh, it is good Lord, and he just wants me to spend more money. That's what he is. He's doing a good job today. I love him. But, between this quick reference guide and this chemical weed and brush control manual that the Extension Service has, you have these two guides together, you can pretty much figure out your own problem. And all you got to do is have somebody help you identify what you're doing. You just Google that number up there to find it, or just Google this title. Here's another great document they came out with, suggestions for pasture, weed control, and forages. It talks about pretty much everything I just said in this PowerPoint, that breaks it down to why it's important. My next set of slides about drones and stuff. Happy spraying. Take a picture. That's my cell phone number. Feel free to holler at me. If you lose this or something like that, you can get a hold of Jared. I tell them if they're friends of his, and you can call me. If you're not, you can call Chris. I love him. So anyways, I would love to always help anybody. I'm not out there to just take your dollar. I tell every landowner that I come onto their place that your dollar is my dollar. I truly mean that, because if it's coming out of your wallet into mine, I have to earn it. And I'd love to come back and earn it again. Instead of me doing something for you, you being really agitated with what I've done. So I try to make things right. I appreciate it. We got any questions before I turn it over to Jared? I think I only went over like 5 minutes by the time you looked me up.
On the broom,
Yes, sir.
does shredding help this time of year, or?
So if I laid my eyes on it, I would tell you whether or not. To be honest, if it has already got the seed put up into the head, I would say no. So if you go out there and start pulling apart that middle of that flower and it's already got seeds forming in it, I go ahead and say no. If it's just unsightly, you got a party coming up, or you've got somebody coming over to look at that prize bull that you try to sell, you know, and you want it to look nice, go ahead and shred it. But at this point in time, if it's got that head on it and it's got seed in there, save the diesel, to go to town and have a nice, well, steak dinner. I was gonna say, just depends on what you got.
Yeah.
It might be Arby's. You know.
Yeah.
That's what we had for dinner. I hadn't had Arby's in a while because Popeyes, man, they were taking forever. I'm cheating on my diet tonight. Y'all don't tell me why.
On the 2,4-D, how can you go do like Tractor Supply? I mean, only sell you a quart.
So there are certain herbicides, that are allowed to be sold. Pretty much the only one that you can't buy like that is dicamba. But so like 2,4-D, you can buy in quart or ready to use bottles. So that's where you see like, what do they call it, a Triumph or,
I think it's Tordon hard turkey.
yeah, Tordon RTU. So that is, so RTUs is ready to use. I'm telling you. So I've never done the math, but I can tell you buying that 2,4-D and that quart and the amount, it's the poundage that's in that bottle. I don't know. I'm going to do the math for that, or I'm going to put it on here just as a shock value. I'm sure it would be probably about $45 to $60 an acre. If I just did some quick math off the top of my head, just for the chemical.
Yeah.
And you could put down a whole heck of a lot of stuff for $45 to $60 an acre. So those quart quantities, those small quantities like that, yes, you can get online. I will tell you that there's some websites that you can order product.
They want you.
Some of them will, but I can tell you that if you get caught, like a feller did in Johnson County did, a while back, it's like a $10,000 fine. And they don't send it to domyownpestcontrol.com. They don't send that bill to your county agent because he jokingly told you, yeah, you can get on Amazon right now, some gun selling grays on P+D on there. No, they send the bill to you. And they send you the fine, and if you've done anything wrong with it,
Visit Brandy.
yeah, Brandy or Kathy Newton or whoever your TVA lady is. We've had some drift situations in our business. Everybody does. If you spray as many acres as we do, it just can't everything always be perfect. You end up killing somebody's crop. I don't care if corn's trading for $2 a bushel or $5.50 a bushel, which would be nice. I'd love $5.50 corn. That'd be cool. But you're going to get hit with a crop issue, or if that adjuster comes out and you've killed someone's peach trees and they start valuing those peach trees at, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a piece, it start adding up. So that's why that stuff's regulated. Because I would love to recommend some Picroam, Tordon, Triumph, Picture. Any of those picloramic acid products, they are be really nice. But if you mess up with that one time, you do not want to know how bad that feels. I've been there. I got like 2 more minutes or so.
Okay, go ahead.
Cool. Let's talk about Mar Shelter. Does anybody know what that is? I've been trying to kind of get vocal on this thing. You ever heard of weed herbicide resistance? Mar Shelter we deal with here in the Blacklands Prairie real good. It loves our black dirt. It's got a cockleburr looking head when it seeds out. It starts out as this little harmless plant, and then it kind of blooms into this bigger thing. Write it down, look it up. I should have left the pictures on here just for visual aid, but if you got anybody that's spraying that stuff for you, I would avoid using anything but a product called Sharpen. I think everything we threw at it this summer, it was resistant to. So I threw dicamba at it, Picloram, and then I got another applicator that threw MSM or Cimarron Plus at it. And it's definitely over the last couple of years gotten resistant. So we've only got one tool left in the toolbox to kill it. So if you guys are squirting Weed Master or buying 2,4-D out of a quart bottle at Tractor Supply or something, those things aren't killing this stuff anymore. And I think we're going to start seeing more and more of it. If you're along towards the east side of the county, closer over there where the Trinity River comes through, I know it, that's way far off, but that's where it's gonna start coming from. Those ecotypes are coming from the Trinity River bottom. We don't know how far north, this stuff originated. We've got stuff as far as, the Metroplex that is showing resistance.
So
So,
it's considered essentially invasive.
yes, it's gonna be,
Torch.
yeah, torch. So when you're like, the place we were on was 1,000 acres. Surrounded by sensitive pecan trees and stuff and things. So, but that was my quick rant on that. But anybody got any other questions for me this evening?
I've got a couple of questions about my own personal stuff. I'll get offline.
Cool deal. Yeah, shoot me a text message or call me.
Okay.
What's the new, the filling, is this sharper, is that the filling you want to, does the scheme?
No, the one that you need a license for is in Bora. Or you might be thinking of Sendero.
That's it,
I don't like Sendero.
or not,
It don't work.
okay,
In Bora, but you gotta have a license to do.
I do.
Those tea trees.
When you say
Remedy
license,
diesel or,
Remedy and diesel.
when you say license, what license are referring to?
A TDA, private pesticide applicator's license. I'm pretty sure that, Mr. Muir or Mr. McLennan offers that class here, or it's online. And all that license does is allows you to purchase, restricted use herbicides, insecticides, fungicides and stuff like that.
There's usually at the end of the year, one class you can take and get all your hours. and-
Yep.
You have to maintain CEU hours, continuing education hours, so many a year, for every 3 years. It's a two-part step, it's a two-step process now to get your license. You have to go through a class that we offer here. Dr. McClellan just had one last week. You come here 8 to 11, 8 to noon, watch a recording, TDA put together. You get a form that says I completed the training. We turn that in the TDA. They'll send you a letter saying, here's your testing number. Then you have to contact the testing center. We have one here in Waco. You have to go take that test to the testing center. We used to give those tests in-house. TDA changed. Now that's all done externally. So it's a third.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, it's took the testing out of our TDA off, our license, our TDA late inspectors and gave it to a testing center. So it's a two-step process. Now it costs so much for us to put on the class and then so much to go take the test. And then once you get your license, you have to maintain 15 CEU hours every 3 years.
And that is the important thing. But I will tell you, don't let that test scare you.
No.
It is if you just force yourself to watch that video and pick up on every 15th word they say,
Read the question.
if you can't pass the test after about the second time, I'm telling you, you probably shouldn't be picking up that jug that you need it for. And that's not for the environment's sake, that's for your own sake.
Well, I'm in education. I know that.
Yes. Once you get it, all you have to do is make sure you keep it removed, and I've had one for 20-some years now, I think.
And once you get one, I highly encourage you, if you got one, never let it go, let it run out. It's a pain to go back through it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw the class y'all offered.
Yes. Like I said, and we do those, yes, and we do those about every quarter. We try to do one about every 3 to 4 months. The best thing to do is if you're interested in it, call up here during office hours, talk to Nicole. She has a wait list. And then once it says change, says, hey, it's time for us to have one. She calls everybody on that wait list and says, hey, we are having a training this day. If you would like us to, we'll add you to it. Then we'll do one again in December, January at the BIG Blackland at the Mid-Tex Farm and Ranch show. On that second day there's actually in the morning, there is a private applicator training that morning as well. So we'll probably do one more before the end of the year, and then we'll do one in January there at that event, and then a couple of times throughout the year.
You said call Nicole.
Yes, ma'am. Call up here, speak to Nicole at the front desk, and she'll get you added on the wait list. Yes, ma'am.
We can hang out.
All right, I'm gonna bring y'all Justin. I thank you. Appreciate you out there.
I'm gonna sit back in the back.
Okay, that'll work. All right. So now I'm going to go into the next topic tonight. Just basic livestock production for small acres. I always get the question, what can I do on my small acre? What, I want livestock. What can I do? There's lots of different things that you can do, depending on your acreage size and what kind of facilities you have, don't have, equipment you have, don't have. And then we'll touch a little bit on grasses and forages, and kind of some things to touch on there. We'll try to breeze through some of these. That was Justin's topic. We're going to talk about the amount of usable land. Again, we'll talk about some facilities and equipment you might need for each one of those, some different types of livestock to use. Again, your labor requirements with each one of those, your animal husbandry, and then some accessible markets to go along with each one of these options that we kind of put together for small landowners. The amount of usable land is the most important concern with any new landowner, big or small. You want to be a good stewardship of the land. Like Justin said, if you got a whole bunch of those broom weeds out there, I can attest to that. Most of the time that's the sign of overgrazing, overstocking, overgrazing of any species of livestock, whether it be sheep, goats, horses, anything. Those things seem to thrive when there is no grass. So we start seeing a bunch of those. We start wanting to decrease our stocking rate and try to work on getting that grass to grow. We start talking about stocking rate. How much can we put on that piece of property that we don't have to provide an excessive amount of supplemental forages or food sources to help to keep those animals going year round. We've talked about it multiple times on our 1D1 exemption. Do I have to have those animals on my property 365 days out of the year to meet that check mark with the county appraisal district? No, you don't have to. You must have them out of there, I think 8 to 10 months out of the year to get that check mark with the appraisal district. So some of these options we're going to talk about are in a year-round, 365 days a year, livestock on your piece of property if you want to have livestock. We start talking about stocking rates. This is some of the same charts we showed in the 1D1 talk. We start talking about animal units, what the county goes off of. They consider a 1,000-pound mature cow as a one animal unit. We start talking about a stocking rate. How much can I have? How many cows can I have on my 10-acre property? Well, just kind of the law, what averages we go off of on just native pasture grasses, unimproved. We talk about 8 to 15 acres, somewhere in that ballpark, depending on where you're at, what kind of, what your grass establishment is per cow. So if you've got 10 acres, you can have one, ideally, unless you're going to provide a lot of extra. So you got to start thinking about that. I can't have a whole herd of cows if I've only got my 10 acres. If you've got some improved pastures, you can have one cow for every 3 to 7 acres. It kind of, again, that's a large number gap. I know. I always tell people, that 10 acres for one cow, 8 to 10 for one, or typically in this area, 3 to 5 if you're looking at improved pastures. But again, it all depends on the year, the type of grass that you have, and how much extra forages you're willing to, and supplemental feed you're going to put into those animals to keep them at a healthy, maintainable body condition score throughout the year. Same thing with all of them. Sheep, goats. I'm just basing it off of cattle for one, but you can see, you can do the math when you start looking at the different numbers for stocking rates for sheep and goats, different things like that. As we go, so I've got 4 or 5 different options that we kind of talked about that I think are kind of more suited for the small landowner, small acreage property owner. One is what we call stocker calves or stocker operators, where you pick up those calves, wean calves, anywhere from 4 to 7 months of age. You're looking at 4 to 5, 600-pound calves. You put them out there on grass for a little while, and you turn around and you resell those calves. You don't have them all year round. You might be able to do this 2 times a year. If we've got a good spring, you can grab them in the springtime. You could early spring, got a lot of forages. You could grow them about before summertime when the grass starts dying off. You can shuck loose of them right through the summer in the drought when we don't have a lot of, through the hot, dry months. Pick them back up once you establish that the winter, your fall forages, your oats, your rye, your legumes, any of that type of stuff in the fall. You get those established. You can run those calves again in the wintertime and get gain on them. And what you're doing is you're playing the market, and you're trying to make your profit on how much they gain. If you buy them at 400, you sell them at 600, and the market it stays like it has been pretty hefty, you stand to make a pretty good margin. But right now, what would it cost to buy those 500-600-pound calves right now? And if something happens in the market tanks, then it's a gamble there. That's an option for you. But you're always again, it's like corn farm, everything else, you're playing with numbers right there. But again, you don't have to have a whole lot of input costs if you've just got grass and pasture. Besides the initial purchase of the livestock, that's the biggest thing there. Flexibility, you don't have to own those cattle. Sometimes you can work on partnerships. So say your neighbor's got a bunch of, and you've got a lot of grass, and you can rent your pasture for a short amount of time for those calves to come across there, graze your pasture down for that 3 or 4 month window, and you ship them right back to them. You don't even own those calves. That's an option to have. That's leasing your property out for short-term grazing. You can do that. I know my neighbor there in Bryan, he leased me his place every year. In the springtime, he got knee-high grass. He got tired of shredding it. His one donkey wasn't taking care of it. We'd run the yearlings, the leftover show steers right across there, hold them for another couple months, bring them right back. Kind of working with your neighbor, that's an option there. There's kind of different things. Minimal facility requirements. You don't need a whole lot if you were to go this route. You might need a catch pen, maybe a little makeshift alley. If you had to doctor a sick one here every now and then, you wouldn't need a whole lot of livestock handling facilities because you're not keeping these guys year round. You can probably get some day workers in with some temporary pens if you wanted to go that route. There's a whole lot of options there. Again, that's just one of them. We start talking about this is just some more of the stocker cattle. You see guys, you can do it on small acreages. If you're flash grazing them, they put a temporary hot wire fence up right here, and they might put them over here for a couple of days, and they move that fence every couple of days. It's a very high intensity, fast grazing. When they fence them off at this part, so they get some regrowth. They're just rotating them through. They might have 5 or 6 sections. They're rotating them through every couple of days, depending on once it gets to a certain length. They move them off that one onto the next one. It's labor intensive, yes, but you can get a lot of gain out of it. You can kind of keep your pastures rolling in a pretty good cycle as well. If you kind of get on that growth cycle, or if you have 5 sections and you rotate them through every 5 to 10 days and you bring them back, and you got ample rain, conditions are right. You can roll these things through a couple of times and be successful in those rotational grazing systems. You can do it with cow-calf operations as well. We'll talk about those here in just a second. That's just some options with some stocker calves. So we start talking about option number 2, as I call it. There's a couple of different ones. If you want to have cows, you want to have a mama cow out there, you want to have that calf, you want to see that cow have that calf. You could go to the sale barn and you could buy these, or get some, work with the local producers, and you could buy these cow-calf pairs, these bred cows. At the sale barn, these aged bred keys, this is a 5-year-old cow, 6 months bred. You start looking at that standpoint there. So she's got some life left in her. She's in good body condition. You purchase that cow right now, in 3 or 4 months, she's going to have a calf at side, and you're going to have 2. You can either keep that cow and sell that calf at weaning, or you can sell both of them at weaning, and you can sell an open cow and that calf, and you can just put that money back to go and buy purchase another bred cow if you want to go that route. That's just an option. Or you can keep that cow, and then if you have a certain time after she has that calf, you want to rebreed her. Maybe you try to get with the local vet or somebody and get her artificially inseminated, or lease a bull. There's people out there that lease bulls, or you find somebody, maybe your neighbor's got one, you can turn her out, lease her, get her bred, and you continually sell that calf. But if you only have a certain amount of acres, you only have a certain number of head, that's an option. Just buy them short term, have them out, and then put them back, and then sell them both as separate. You can sell them as a pair, or you can sell them separately as a cow, as an open cow and a weaned calf. And hopefully you could turn a little profit there as well. Another option, if you've got a lot of grass, a lot of guys have gone to, is they're buying these thin, shelly, either bred or open cows. They're not eye appealing at all. If you're looking at something that look pretty out in the front yard, this gal here, she's not eye appealing. Unfortunately, she probably came from a scenario pasture like Justin talked about that was full of broom weeds. We see those quite a bit. These poor gals, there's not enough forage out there for them to maintain their body condition, maintain their body weight. That might have been her calf right there in the background. He needed to be weaned a few months ago. He's doing nothing but sucking more out of her than she can produce. You go buy these gals, buy them at market price, at canner cow prices. You feed them, put in some grass, put in a little mineral, some vaccine, make a dewormer. In 4 to 6 months, she comes back and she's looking like that. You're going to get a premium for that cow, and hopefully you're turning a little bit of profit there as well. You can run 2 or 3 of those gals there. If you got, 10 acres or so, you can run a couple of those, adding in some additional feed sources in there, putting some condition on them, buy them at a relatively low price, get some body condition, some weight on them, even if you wanted to. There's some of you guys that can buy them as breds like that. I hate to know that she's bred, but if she is, you get them both born. You get some weight on her and some condition. You get the calf born alive, get him healthy, and get him weaned. That's an option to turn some profit there as well. Just trying to make a little bit, utilize your property and help you turn a little bit of profit as well. While you get that check mark with the county to get that tax break. All right. The other third option is coming more and more popular with these small acres is the freezer beef program. You might have, like I mentioned it when we talked about the 1B1 exemption. You got 10 acres. You go buy that weaned calf, that weaned steer, that weaned bull, that weaned steer, that weaned heifer at from the sale barn, 600-800 pounds. And you grow it out until it reaches that 1,200 pound mark, or whatever you deem market is your ideal market weight for that calf. And you can market those first through, on the hoof. You can sell them on the hoof. This calf weighs 1,200 pounds. I want $1.80 or whatever the board says, a little bit over the board, because you can sell it as you can prove what that animal was only fed grass, or it's been fed grain-fed diet his entire life. Or just a grass-fed diet. You can sell those kind of things. You can sell them by the half, whole, quarters. You can sell individual cuts. One of my former 4-H families, they made a pretty good little side business here. They have bundles. They put family packs together, just different kinds of steak packages, family bundles, different things like that. And that's their little niche market. They raise Brahma cattle, ideally primarily Brahman show heifers. Every year there's a big slug of, if any given year you got a 50-50 crop of bull calves. There's not a big market for Brahman bull calves. They found a way to find a market for those Brahman bull calves, or those F1 crossbred calves they have. They grow them out. They got their own little grow yard on the backside of their facility, and they grow 8 or 10 of them. And they harvest 3 or 4 a month. And they've got a big walk-in cooler. And they pre-sell a lot of it. They also have a lot. You can call them up. They sell out. They started small, and they grew their program. They went to farmers markets every weekend, social media, just word of mouth, putting that product out there at a relatively affordable price. And then they've grown and they've grown. And so now they make a pretty good little side hustle with that freezer beef program. I've worked with several new small landowners, got 8 or 10 acres. I've mentioned it before. We got them where they purchased that 1 or 2 calves from the sale barn or a producer, and they started growing them out and feeding them. When those things reached, I told them, when those things reached within 2/3 of what your ideal goal is. If you bought them at 600, you wanted to reach 1,200. When they get to the 800 to 900 pound range, it's time to buy another one. That way, when it's time to harvest that 1,200 pounder, you've got another one that's at 900. That way, you can keep that clientele coming. That I've got those animals. That they're good quality beef. They're home raised. People know where their food comes from. They seem to like that. One producer that I work with, he kills 1 a month. He has a rolling kill date with the IO processing plant in Evant. It's a USDA inspected plant. He brings them there 1 a month. They process them and he sells them. You can buy quarters, halves, you can buy the whole thing. And you get it all. You pick out what cut. Most of those, when you buy them, sell them by quarter, wholes and halves, you can pick out some of. You can get the cut sheets from the processor, and you can sell them individually. If you want a whole bunch of steaks, you want the whole thing ground up a hamburger. That's your prerogative there. So that's an option. Again, that's becoming a pretty popular one with some small landowners, and just in the world we live in now. Just going to the grocery store, what meat costs. You look about how much meat you can get from half a cow. You get 160, 200 pounds, 220 pounds of meat take home with you right there. That's quite a bit. We start talking about what that might cost at the store to go buy every day if you're going to buy hamburger meat or whatever. You get quite a bit. You can kind of see what she gets right here on some of her steaks and different things. Just an option. So that kind of moves into our small ruminant section of our livestock options. You start talking about sheep and goats, becoming a pretty, there's lots of things you can do with a meat goat or a Spanish type goat in our area. Those animals, they're browsers. and great, and so if you got them turned out, you've got some weeds and brush, they're gonna graze on that, they're gonna graze on those things. They're gonna get those tree lines and brush lines cleared up. Is it instantaneous? No, but they will help get those fence lines cleaned off. A lot of times, if you've got some Spanish goats, specifically this kind of guys here in the middle and over here, they're going to eat those those forages off these, your tree limb, your leaves, your brush, and the weeds and stuff before they would eat that nice, pretty coastal Bermuda grass. Why? I don't know. Your boar goats are a little more picky. Sometimes they're going to prefer that Bermuda grass. One of the bigger issues we've got to worry about being as close as east of I-30, on I-35 and east of it, right here, is internal parasites. These guys, especially these boar goats, are very, very susceptible to internal parasites. So we got to make sure if we have these animals and want to go this route, we are deworming those animals multiple times a year with multiple different options, whether it be a injectable, a oral. Topical do not work. I do not recommend topical dewormer on your sheep and goats. Oral or injectable is the go-to. There's lots of different options. Make sure you're rotating those dewormers. Don't use the same one multiple times, just to make sure we don't build up that resistance. Just like Justin talked about in herbicides, we can build those resistance up in those internal parasites as well. And then we run into major problems with that also. Rotating pastures is another good way. Most life cycles on any internal parasite for sheep, goats, anything like that, or cattle, is 21 days. If you pull that animal off that one section for greater than 21 days, you're going to help hopefully end that life cycle of that internal parasite. Because what they do is that they're transmitted through the feces. The animal drops, those eggs are on the ground. That cow, sheep, goat grazes around them and takes those eggs. And it's just the process keeps going. So if you remove that animal for 21 days, hopefully you're breaking that life cycle and help spreading that out just a little bit. So that's where a benefit of rotational grazing comes in. One thing, as I've seen quite a few articles on with the goats, people are now leasing them out for brush clearing in properties where you might go buy 50 goats and then you're flash grazing those guys on a small 5-acre tract on just in certain areas of that field. I saw it on the solar farms. Just y'all do some herbicide applications on solar farms. I saw one where a guy, he had run those goats on a solar farm to help clear those out. He had on small sections, grazed them, flash grazed them for X number of days, moved them off, rotate to a next one. So if that's, again, it's labor intensive and everything else, but it is an option if you're looking for some sort of livestock production with your property as well as others. You can't keep them all year round on your 10 acres. I can lease them out maybe to my neighbors or open the gates and turn them loose, let them go to the neighbor's property and graze theirs down and just kind of rotate them around if you wanted to go that way. Another one that's very popular in this area. We see a bunch of them. If you ever go to the Waco sale barn, they sell a load of these guys down here. They're black and white head, white bodies with black heads, white body. They call those hair sheep. They sell there's different versions of them: Barbados, Katahdins, Dorpers, are these guys right here, the black and white ones. They're very popular in this area. They're very similar to sheep and to goats. They're a sheep though, but they don't have wool like your medium wool sheep. You don't have to shear them off every year. Sometimes you do have to assist them that they get what they call a fly blanket over the top of them. Sometimes you might have to shear that off every now and then. A lot of times they slough their wool when it starts warming up, and then they have hair like a goat, especially on their leg and their lower third of the body. They're more parasite resistant. One of the big things that makes them so popular in this area is they're a little more resistant to the parasites in Central and East Texas. The further we go west out there, where big sheep and goat country is, they don't have as many parasites to have to worry about that. So that's one of the reasons these guys here are more popular, because of their parasite resistance, their heat tolerance, everything else, and the fact that you don't have to shave them like you do a wool sheep. I've found in my experience with these guys, goats, they're going to find a way to get out of your pasture. Anytime you can, they're going to take their head that they're going to get stuck. I've seen guys keep these sheep in just a 6-7 barbed wire fence. They'll stay in. They respect it more than a goat. A 6-strand barbed wire fence, like they'll hold cows in. These guys, they'll get through it every day. They'll be out on the road every day. Your sheep, especially your Dorpers, they're a little more respective of that. Hot wires, different things. They can be trained, they can be trained to come to feed buckets, everything else. They're a little more user friendly sometimes, so that's a positive there as well. All these markets for these guys in our area, the number one market for sheep and goats, is the Waco Sale Barn here. They have a large sheep and goat market. Yes.
A slight step back, going to the intestinal parasites for goats. What are the main symptoms or the main identifying factors for that?
We start looking at it when you start. There's different depending on what worm you have. Coccidia. Most times, your number one is they're going to be it's massive weight loss. They're going to start looking like that old cow I showed you a couple of while ago in this bottom corner down here. They're going to start looking like that. You're going to see their rib cage, their backbones, different things. You're going to see those. The biggest way you can tell if you catch them and you open it, look inside their eyelid, is it real white versus being pink. They would call it the Fermatcha scores. If you actually just Google that, there is a sheet you can print off that shows you what their inside of their eyelids should look like color wise, and they kind of give you a score on how I guess wormy they are or wormy they're not. They kind of tells you one sign of like a coccidiosis is the scalars. Then they start losing weight because they just can't absorb anything in their gut. They start losing weight. Weight loss is the number one identifier of any internal parasite, not just in sheep and goats, but in cattle too. If you're having a lot of weight loss, highly encourage you to first, if you're not sure, pull a fecal sample, take it to a local vet. They'll put it under the microscope, they'll float it, and they'll see what you're dealing with. They can get you on a right plan. Anything with any livestock we talk about, I highly encourage you to have that vet-client relationship. Anything you might need to treat those guys with now, you cannot buy any antibiotic over the counter anymore. So if you've got livestock, you're going to have a vet at some point.
Now, if we suspect that they're pregnant, and we give them a dewormer, is that dewormer gonna do anything to as negative effects as far as the pregnancy or anything like that?
Depends what dewormer you use. On sheep and goats, white wormers, which are primarily valvaisons, you do not give to pregnant animals. It says on the label, do not give to pregnant animals because it will cause abortions. There's other ones out there, just like with the chemicals, you always read the label because there are certain ones you don't give to certain animals. At certain times, if you go, there are certain vaccines you don't give once they're so many days bred on any livestock, just different things. Again, that's where I highly recommend, highly encourage to have that vet-client relationship. When it comes to that type of stuff, there's several vets local, large animal. 9 times, if you ever have an emergency, if you don't have that vet-client relationship, there's very slim chance they're going to pick up that phone and answer and call you back. You've got that vet-client relationship. A lot of times they will answer the phone. You can, like I said, bring these fecal floats in or bring us a fecal sample in. They'll float them. They'll say, hey, you look under the microscope. They can identify what worms you're dealing with in livestock and get you on a management plan to help get your goats or livestock back on the right track. Answer your questions?
I did. Thank you.
All right. Okay. There's some facilities you might need for sheep and goats. We talked about that. Barbed wire fences alone are probably not suitable for sheep and goats. You can get by. One thing you got to watch about is predators in these guys. So if you just got a barbed wire fence, your neighbor's dogs, coyotes, bobcats, anything can roam right through there. So if you're going to go sheep and goats as your option for your property, I would always highly encourage a net wire fence to help keep those animals in and predators out. If you're going to run sheep and goats on a large scale, or even on a small scale, 8 or 10 of them, you're worried about predators. You've got a decent sized place. You're not there 24/7. It's 15 acres and you don't live there. You're an absentee landowner. I would definitely encourage a livestock guardian dog or livestock guardian animal of some sort, whether it be donkey, llama. The livestock guardian dogs are very popular as well. Something to live with those animals, and stay with them and ward off those predators. Help keep your animals safe. And keep so you're not having to shell out more money to go buy new ones because the neighbor's dog keeps getting there and killing them off. Okay, if you got sheep and goats, you might need a small pen or corral to help kind of get those in. As I tell a lot of new landowners, something to get out of the wind and rain. Where it's a roof and 2 sides, keep them out of the north wind, where they can stay warm and dry. If we get those harsh, cold winters, they need throw some straw down, some hay, something to keep them warm. They can huddle together. They're pack animals. They like to stay together. They will huddle together and stay warm, but keep them something to stay warm out of the wind and out of the rain. crane are the two must-haves there. You can put some panels together pretty easily, pretty inexpensively. Some way to catch them, some way to haul them to wherever your endpoint is, whether it be a sale barn or something like that. Ways to transport those animals. Do I need a big trailer? If I've got sheep and goats, I'm just going to haul a few of them to the sale barn every couple of weeks. No, I can get by with a cage that goes in the back of my pickup and put it back there, or I get a small trailer. Or if you know your neighbor's got a trailer, you can borrow it, or you can always contact those guys at the sale barn, and they know guys that will come out and pick up your livestock and transport them for you of any size, sheep, goats, cattle, any of those are out there. There's some shelters you might need. This little lean-to huts there in the middle will be, just something to keep them out, keep the wind off, or the rain off of them, out of the wind. Throw some hay or some bedding down, some shavings or something, keep them warm. You can get by little half huts there. A little more extensive crowding pen alley. If you're going to have a bunch of them, you're going to run them through and vaccinate them, deworm them, different things like that, just to make your life a little easier. If we're going to run them a lot for long term, but you said you can get by with the bare minimum also on these guys. Purchasing breeding stock. Where would I go to buy these animals? You can go to the sale barn. Like I said, every Tuesday they sell them there at Waco Sale Barn. Any of the livestock they sell, there's other sale barns besides the Waco. I just keep mentioning because it's close. Further you go out west, they've got a lot more. Hamilton's got a very big one. Sheep and goats. As you get further west, they have a lot more sheep and goat sales. Cattle, you can go to any sale barn if you want to go that route, or you can find producers that sell them. I know we have a list of some guys. If you called us, I'm looking for some Dorpers. I've got a whole list of guys that are raising Dorpers, and they're selling rams, they're selling wethers, they're selling ewes, all kinds of things. We can put you in contact with those. Same thing with livestock as well. Goats also. We have those lists if you want to go just to a producer. The benefit of going from you buying them directly from me or Joe Blow down the road is because that, hey, I can tell you those animals have been vaccinated, dewormed on this day, so on and so forth. You go buy them at the sale barn, you have no idea what he had prior to you picking him up and owning him. So if that's the route that you go, I highly recommend that you put those animals on some kind of protocol when you get them home. Vaccinate them, deworm them, something like that to get them, at least what's going on. Even if he was vaccinated a couple months ago, it's not going to hurt you to go ahead and get another one. It's a booster shot. That way, for safety reasons, he's had a black leg shot in a calf, or he's been dewormed. So I know, that we're not going to have the problem with those worms, something like that. Same thing with health on them. We just talked about that. Breeding. We start talking about gestation periods for your sheep and goats. There's 150-day gestation intervals. There's estrus cycles are 21 days. So if you're lambing and kidding, you got to think about that. You can potentially get two with Dorpers. They're not seasonal breeders. You can breed them. You can potentially get two kid crops out of your Dorpers twice. So they can kid twice a year. Now, the amount of forages you have based on the number of animals you're grazing. Again, that talks about your stocking rates and your carrying capacities. We've talked about that and how much these animals would consume. 1/2 to 2 pounds of supplemental feed a day, depending on what their environment is, their stage of gestation, their stage of growth. All of that is going to play a factor into what their nutritional requirements are. Then again, we talked about the markets, where to sell those animals when you're done with them, whether it be at the local sale barns or you try to find that niche market. Sheep and goats is a little harder in this area to find those niche markets, those ethnic markets, or where your goats and sheep are at certain times of the year. Those guys at the sale barn can tell you these kids at 50 pounds to 80 pounds are worth substantially more during certain times of the year due to the holidays and different things, ethnic holidays and that kind of stuff. So there's a big market for those. To send them down toward the more metropolitan areas, Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth, they have processing plants, and those animals are more sought after at certain times of the year. If you're trying to hit those windows, visit with those guys at the sale barn. They're very knowledgeable because they'll tell you, because if you're making money, they're making money. So they'll tell you, hey, we need those guys. We need intact, non-tail docked kids for Dorper sheep between 60 and 80 pounds in April. So can I pull my rams out? I'm using that as an example, but you can pull your rams out and put your rams in at a certain time and try to get those kids to maximize your dollar. You're going to sell barn anyway. So if instead of selling them in May or June, can I get them to be that weight range a couple months earlier? That means I need to put make sure my rams are getting those ewes bred at a certain time. Just kind of some things to work through as you're trying to figure out what your plan is to make yourself a little bit of profit, or at least break even on your property. John, we'll breeze through forages here, just management tips real quickly. I'm running out of time. I don't want to keep y'all too long tonight. Just kind of looking at the average precipitation for Texas. We kind of fall right here in this middle. On any given year, our average is anywhere from 26 to 34 inches of rain. Some years some years we get pretty close to that. Some years we get over that. The last few years we've been well below that. We'll show a couple maps I like to use here. The drought monitor. We utilize this quite a bit. This was taken when I was putting this together last week. We're right here in Texas. You start looking about where we are, how much of us is in the drought is in a drought condition. The red, not as many. But look back to last time. We look back in 22. That's the difference there in 2 years, roughly, of what we talked about. The difference in drought. The drought monitor there shows. You can pull this up anywhere. You can look all across the nation every day, or every week. It's updated. This is the difference in Texas in 2 years. This is 2020. We're right in here. We're still a little dry, but we're not super like we were a couple years ago. We were back in that D3, D4 range back in 2022. So we're getting it back out of that, but we're still seeing effects from that drought back in 22. And trees and weeds and all types of stuff we're seeing in livestock. We're seeing the effects of that drought many years later. Get lots of tree questions. I know Justin probably dealt with that as well. What's wrong with my tree? My trees, these problems. We're seeing problems in trees from the effects of this drought. Just now seeing them. So that's one thing I like to throw up there. Your drought monitor, that always affects your forages. That always affects your livestock markets as well. We start talking about, I talked to you all about soil testing, the importance of soil testing. Know what's in your soil, know what you're doing. Now we aren't just throwing a bunch of nitrogen at it every year. Your soil might not be deficient in nitrogen. It might be deficient in something else. Take a soil test. Sample depth, you need to go about 6 inches deep to get a good sample of your dirt. Just kind of take some pictures of it here. Mix it up. Use a plastic bucket, not a metal bucket when you're mixing that soil up. Take all the dry matter out best you can. Put those in a soil testing bag. Send those to the soil testing lab there in Bryan College Station. A routine analysis test is $12 a sample. It's relatively inexpensive to know what as much money as herbicides and fertilizers and all that cost. That way you know what I need to put down. And they'll send you a results back that looks like this. And you can work with us here at the extension office, the guys at the chemical plants that tells you how much, or that sells your fertilizer, and says it'll say I need to put down X number of pounds of nitrogen per acre. You can bring that to them. They're at the fertilizer company that mixes those custom blends. They can help formulate a mix that you can go and sling out, or have somebody come sling out on your property. That'll be the most beneficial for your property. You're not just getting a blanket 1300 or 2600 or 131313. You're getting a custom blend that is suitable for what your soil is missing.
And where is this? You can get that?
The sample,
No,
the testing bags and all that.
No, the blending.
Several facilities around here, depends on what part of the county you live in. If Bruce Lady's got one, there's a couple of them on the east side of the county over there. West has one. There's some out toward, ma'am.
What are they called?
Helena's over here in Bruce Lady.
Is it listed by fertilizer or?
Depends on, as far as the store itself.
Yeah.
Depends. Like that's Helena Nutrients in Hillsborough. That just kind of depends. There's lots of different. They go like the one in Leroy. It's 5J feed. It's a feed mill, but they also have a fertilizer company as well.
Okay.
If you just look up custom fertilizer blending, yeah, you can probably find several of them. If not, holler at me. I can point you in the direction closest to where you're at. There's several of them around. If there's not one close, there's definitely places you can go. Most of them rent those buggies out if you're trying to sling it out yourself, or if you want to have somebody come in and do it, they have a list of custom guys that work with them as well. And then it kind of tells you what you need. You need nitrogen at so many, 50 pounds per, it breaks it down what you need. Your primary ones, your nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. Your secondary nutrients right here is your calcium, magnesium, and sulfur. And then your micros or your copper, manganese, and zinc. Those are the ones you're going to get back. Your results are going to get back. The primary ones that they come up with are right here at the top. Those are the go-tos, are the easiest ones to hit. Again, we talk about minimizing your overgrazing. Watch your drought monitor. Maintain your soil fertility. Justin did a really good job of talking about weed and insect control, more weeds and insects. Then utilize your cool season annual forages. We'll touch a little bit on those. Your winter forages, your cool season forages are your ryegrasses, your cereal grains, small grains such as wheat and oats. You can kind of intermix those. Your legumes such as your clovers. You can throw those in there as well. Those are all the kind you can put out. It gives you a seeding rate here. When to use them, months to use, February to May, December to April, to kind of get them out. And utilize those cool season forages when the Bermuda grass and stuff starts shutting down. When it starts around that first frost, we need something out there for those animals to continue grazing on. So we're not having to feed them and put out hay. Utilize those cool season forages as an option there to get you by. Okay. I know that was a lot covered this evening, fast and furious. Justin had a lot of great information, very entertaining. I appreciate his time to come down here. He was always great when he was an agent, great at weed identification. We still reach out to him. I'm glad he would come down this evening. Don't have any questions for me? I know I've answered them throughout the day. We skip next week. I'm gone for State Fair with the 4-H kids. We'll be back in here on October 7th to wrap us up with some equipment needs. We've got a couple equipment dealers going to come in and talk to us, do a little explaining, and then we're going to do some just basic backyard gardening 101, kind of get you started if you want to venture into the gardening path with your property. I don't have any questions online or in person. That's all I've got for y'all this evening. I appreciate y'all joining us.